Hello friends and beautiful people, it is Kathryn Massell, 5D Visionary, Elevated Consciousness Coach. This is episode 8 of All Things Ascension. Today we're talking about astral pollution, we are talking about 4D plasmic overlay and imposter energy. Basically we're talking about 4D, and it seems like these are 3 different topics, but they all overlap and have to do with each other. So let's see who's going to jump on. I'm jumping back into my business today with a lot of energy and vigor. Yesterday, I was down for the count. I had nothing. I had no energy. We had a crazy snowstorm here and it was overwhelming. But there's a lot of solar flare energy as well. Lots of geomagnetic surges, and I just felt like it was sapping my energy. Usually I'm really good about being able to protect my energy in that way, but yesterday just took me out of it. So I just stopped doing everything. I didn't force anything. Hi Meredith. And I just decided to just take the day off and kind of lay in bed and read and play with my dog and do nothing. And it was awesome. So I think I needed it. Hi, Jeffrey. Hello, friends. If you're here, let me know you're here. Say hello. So we are in episode 8 of All Things Ascension, talking about astral pollution, 4D plasmic overlay, and imposter energy. A couple quick announcements, as I am wont to do. Next week, Friday, we begin the Global Acceleration of Ascension live virtual summit. 39 presenters over 3 days. It's totally free. All you have to do is, while you're already watching in this group, hopefully, just show up. The full event calendar is finalized. It is in the announcements section of the Global Acceleration group, and you can check that out there. You can also, I'll have my replays anyway up on YouTube, but the best way to watch this live and in real time is in this group. If you're watching this outside of this group, the link is going to be in the YouTube replay for joining the Global Acceleration of Ascension Facebook group, because all of the live presentations, they're half-hour presentations, 39 of them over 3 days, they're all taking place in this group. So bring a friend, settle in, take a look at the calendar, see who you want to watch and what time they're going to be on, and make sure you mark your calendar, set an alarm, do what you got to do, write it down, put a post-it note on the fridge, and check out these folks live who are giving very generously and freely of their time, their wisdom, their energy to provide you with excellent information. When you look at the event calendar, you will see there is a full spectrum of information having to do with the physical, the mental, the emotional, spiritual, and all how that's rolled it up into you understanding more of the ascension process and how to navigate these challenging times and get some help, get some support. Come and, add some new people to your community. Everybody meets new folks every time we do this summit, and people get to add to their community, add to their tribe, which is always a fringe benefit. So come join us for that. Quantum Quintessence Society, we are starting to fill up with members. So if you want to get in on that, it's only $199 for 16 weeks of a mastermind talking about 4, 5, 6, and 7D. $199 is an incredibly low investment for a high value product and high value program. 16 weeks of studying and discussing and practicing with 4, 5, 6, and 7D starting March 11th. And that is $199 until the 9th of February. And then it goes up to $299, which is still an incredible value. So if you're into that, if you like what I do, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you probably get a good flavor of what I'm about, what I do, what I talk about, what I share, what I can deliver. This is going to be a pretty amazing container for us to really explore in this space. So there's that. So Let's get into it, shall we? Today's topic, astral pollution, 4D plasmic overlay, and imposter energy. These are all things that overlap with each other. They all have to do with 4D. And so we are in a really interesting time here on planet Earth and in this 3D reality realm, because we are ushering in a new astrological age, the Age of Aquarius. We have been in the Age of Pisces. And there are a lot of things that happen when we move into a new astrological age. As far as the exact time, there's no real consensus of opinion, but it's believed to really start initiating, really start moving and gaining momentum around this March's equinox, the vernal equinox, because of the sun's placement in front of the constellation of Aquarius. So that's not widely agreed upon, but that's kind of the intel and downloads that I've been getting, that things are going to really start moving and shaking when we get into mid-March. And the reason why we've been seeing so much disclosure, why there's so much information coming to light, why there is so much of a collective purge in all of humanity, getting rid of a lot of pent-up energy. A lot of energy is being released. It's causing a lot of division here on planet Earth, but that's because we've had suppressed desires, suppressed id, suppressed ego, and that all kind of collects in the astral plane as astral pollution in 4D. And so anything that comes to us here in 3D, because we are at a lower density, we are in a lower density plane of vibration. So things have to go through the higher realms of or dimensions of reality before they reach us. And 4D is our filter. I have two great videos about 4D. One is Understanding 4D, which is another All Things Ascension episode that I highly recommend if you want the backstory and a little deeper foundational understanding of what I'm talking about here. Please go check out that video if I can find it here real quick. I'll put the link in. Understanding 4D. This is a very, very highly active dimensional realm for us right now, filtering a lot of, it always is filtering information for us here. But what's filtering in is a highly dualized amount of energy. It's a bifurcation of energy between light and dark, good and bad, if you want to call it that, but it is highly dualized because there are forces kind of vying for our attention between the light and dark agendas, if you want to call it that. And I'll explain that in a second and why that's happening now. So let me see if I can find Understanding 4D. There it is, Understanding 4D. So if you want a deeper foundational understanding of 4D, number one, you want to watch this video. Number two, you may want to get in my Quantum Quintessence Society, because we're going to spend a whole month talking about playing with and practicing in and clearing out some of the suppressed energy of 4D, not only in our own individual frequency fields, but in the collective field of mind as well. So here is that video for you to get a little understanding. Okay, so the reason why there's all this astral pollution, this pent-up energy, this highly divisive nature and dualized nature of information that gets trickled from 4D into 3D is because whenever we move into a new astrological age, which happens about every 2100 years or so, we have a changing of the guard, or an attempted changing of the guard. Hey, Chloe. Hey, Christina. So that means these highly bifurcated, split, separate, divisive, dualized energies that make up the frequency realm of 4D, they kind of perk up their attention when we move into a new astrological age. And those who are the keepers of darker agendas, shadow energy, false ascension energies, etc., they're, ready to fight. They're ready to fight for, keeping us in that darkness, because we're easier to manipulate, dominate, and control when we are asleep, when we're not awake, when we're not seeing these levels of disclosure, or aren't privy to these levels of disclosure that are happening at a very accelerated rate now, waking us up to what's really going on, the story of our own humanity, our own historical timelines that have been highly shrouded in secrecy for a very long time. All this is coming up, being unveiled and ready for our review and ready for our excavation, ready for our investigation, giving us a lot of information like, why have we been this way as humanity? Why do we keep going back as a default way of being to being divisive, infighting with each other, keep fighting with each other, when we really should be rallying together, which is what 5D is. 5D is unity consciousness, okay? And when we get past all this infighting, when we get past all of this ability to feel like someone has the power to sway us towards division and fighting each other, once we get past that and wake up to that there is a bigger agenda making us fight each other, we're not going to get to unity consciousness, okay? So 4D is very active right now with those darker energies, darker agendas trying to get us to like, squirrel, look over there, they're fighting again. Look over there, there's more darkness. Look over there, there's another dark agenda being exposed that you have to pay attention to and raise your fists up in the air and get mad about and fight about. And only see one side of an issue about, okay? Those darker agendas who are perking up their attention in 4D as we move into a new astrological age, believe me, they're paying attention to what you are paying attention to. And they're using highly sophisticated tools now, because let's remember how fast technology moves right now. When we've been in the Age of Pisces, which was also about 2100 years, okay, we didn't have the technology when the Age of Pisces began, and there was a changing of the guard again, moving into that new astrological age that we have now. We have a lot of technology that, yes, false ascension agendas can use different levels of software now to get our attention even more. And because technology has this habit, this really annoying habit of moving a lot faster than our very ancient reptilian brains have an ability to grasp the technology as it's moving, we tend to get kind of thrown under the bus, and we tend to get kind of swept up in this technological age, and we lose our ability, which is an innate divine ability, and that is discernment. So we stop questioning things. We just kind of go with, where is the flow of the collective hive mind going? Is it going towards fear? Is it going towards feeling manipulated? Is it going towards feeling dominated and controlled? Let's go that way. Because that's part of our herd mentality as well, which is an ancient part of our brain. But we have this greater ability when we tap into that divine aspect of self, of discernment. So on that note, just as much as there are these darker players in the keepers of 4D playing their game, there is just as much of dualized energy, of polarized energy, of those who are defending the light, and those who are bringing levels of disclosure of higher spiritual truths to us. Those energies are just as active as the darker agendas, and we forget that. But it's because we're constantly being, led along by the noses to like, look this way, look at all the darkness, look at what's happening there, look who's being, manipulated there. Look at the lies over there. Look at the misinformation over there. It's this constant vying for your attention. And without our own sovereign free will choice to be led in that direction, they have no power. And ultimately, the only power lies in where we decide to participate, where we decide to fund our energetic investment. You can spend just as much time looking at those dualized energies in 4D who are just as hard at work as the darker agenda ones, the keepers of the darker agenda. You can spend just as much time looking at that and defending that and playing into that energy, funding your energetic investment of your, highly prized electromagnetic frequency, funding that timeline, okay? Or that dualized energy. So always, when there's a new astrological age that comes, it's an opportunity to take our dimension back. I'm going to say that again. Always and ever, when we are at the precipice of a new astrological age, we have the opportunity to take our dimension back. Because just as much as those dualized energies that I'm talking about, those who are the defenders of the light and the keepers of the higher spiritual truths, who are hard at work, kind of, you know, having this push and pull against those who are the keepers of the darker agendas and filtering that down into our 4D, those are the keepers of that realm, that dimensional frequency. But we are the keepers of 3D. And we forget this is our dimension. Yes, there may be energies that work very hard to filter through us, but they can only do that if we're not awake. They can only do that if we're not aware. They can only do that if we're not paying attention and not using discernment and constantly moving into our higher God self aspect, where we have the ultimate objective observer vantage point of what's really going on. You can't be an ego and have full discernment. You can't be an ego and pointing a finger and only looking at one side of an issue and hope to have discernment and hope to have full awareness of what's really going on. You're going to be veiled to one level or more of perception at a time when you're like that. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Galia. Is this making sense? So as we are at this precipice, this very auspicious time of moving into the Age of Aquarius, we have the opportunity to take our dimension back because we are the keepers of 3D. And we have in that innate power the ability to say, I do not consent. I will no longer be an unwitting pawn of darker agendas using me to further their agenda. That is our power here, and we forget that. We've been learned out of it. We've been tricked out of it, which brings me to another nuance of this talk. Hi, Tammy. So this astral pollution, just to sum up, it's built up with pent-up collective mind desires. This has been built up from the entire age of Pisces, okay? So we're talking about 2,100 plus years of this astrological age of, you know, repressed sexuality, desires, id and ego energies that have been repressed and suppressed, collective mind desires that we're naughty, we're told that that's not good, that's not healthy, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean we're not feeling these things, though. Just because someone says it's not right to feel them, or it's not right to showcase them, or put them out on Front Street, doesn't mean we're not feeling them. And everything about 4D is about feelings. It is about the collective thought mind as well. But really at the base of that, it's about our feelings, and especially what makes that darker side of the dualized energies of 4D, what makes that so much more powerful is all the pent-up desires, judgments, fears, suppressed ego impulses, false father and false mother archetypes, because 4D is a realm of archetypes and myths and fantasy. So all this stuff that gets pent up as fantasy, you know, stuff that's repressed or suppressed, that energy, frequency, that spectrum feeds the darker agenda. So that's why we see so much division here in 3D, because this is literally filtering down like a very strong thunderstorm of energy filtering down into 3D, and we're receiving this and then we're acting it through. We're taking these feelings and running with them and turning them into not so good behaviors and not such great exhibitions of who we are as a human family. So this is what's playing out, okay? But it's important to remember that no feeling, no action, no event is final. Especially right now, we're accelerating through frequency shifts very, very quickly now. So even though it feels like this is a long, drawn-out, protracted, agonizing display of what's going on with the human family, in terms of the cosmic hologram and the fuller picture of all of consciousness, this is just a microscopic snapshot. It feels like forever, but it's really not, okay? It's having its day because of all this pent-up astral pollution, okay? That has to come through the astral realm of 4D, and it has to cleanse and it has to purge, and we have to have it filter through us, okay? We can be more empowered in how it filters through us, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But this is what is happening for us right now. And because it is such a 4D is like an energetic soup. I talk about this in the video that I referenced here. You're welcome for this information, Galia. I'm glad this is helping. when I was talking about understanding 4D in the video that I posted here, I have the link for that. You know, I'm talking about how 4D is like a big energetic soup, especially when it's highly active and highly charged right now, which it is. It's like an energetic canopy of light. You can think of it as a canopy of light, or kind of like a bent spectrum of energy that enshrouds the spectrum or bubble of energy that is the 3D matrix, which is our realm, okay? And this energetic soup, it's thick. And if there's so much going on, if it's so highly charged in 4D, one way to think of it is like it trickles down, but it's like pea soup. It's so thick. It's like viscous, like it's got like texture to it. There's a thickness to it. It's like, I think of it as, when I think of like the Ghostbusters movies, do you remember the Ghostbusters when they would get slimed? It's like that plasmic kind of slime. It's like a clear plasma. But those of us who are highly clairvoyant, those of us who are highly clairsentient, meaning you feel the energy, sometimes it feels like you'll walk into certain spaces and it feels like you're walking into thick pea soup. So maybe some of you are noticing that, because the 4D plasmic overlay right now, this highly charged energy of astral pollution, what I'm talking about, you feel it. And those of us who are clairvoyant, you're seeing it. I've had a lot of my clients tell me in probably the last 8 weeks or so, a lot of clients are reaching out to me and like, are you seeing this too? But it's like they're seeing like rainbow bubbles. But it's like, it has a thickness to it. And they'll see it when they're walking in certain places, usually where there's large crowds gathering, because the human population is highly charged right now. We have so many issues with COVID, the presidency here in the US, with policies around the world. There's such a highly charged 3D human family right now. And also 4D, highly charged. So it's like these realms are overlaying and overlapping over each other, and is so powerful that we're seeing it, we're feeling it. Some of us are hearing it. I hear it because I'm very clairaudient. My two strongest senses are clairaudience and clairsentience. So I hear it and I feel it. And when I try to stay away from crowds at this point, because we are highly over-touristed here in Lake Tahoe. It's crazy. But there are large crowds and gatherings of people, and I try to stay away from them. But when I am near that, like even in the vicinity, I can feel this 4D plasmic overlay. So those of us who are feeling that, those of you who are feeling that, you're not going crazy, you're not losing your mind, that's what that is, okay? Galia says, I can feel its thickness, right? And it's just like, get off of me, right? It's not a good feeling, right? So this is, one of many different calls to attention for us to protect our energy, ground ourselves, and not consent to anything that we don't feel we have the ability to control at the moment. Meaning, if you're unconscious and you just kind of walk through this energy and you're like, oh, whatever, that's on you then. That's on you. There are so many tools that you can use. I have the do not consent statement that I'll post in here if you guys want that again. I posted it, I think, in a video last week. That is a declaration of your sovereignty and your energy. It basically says, don't F with me. This is my field. You're not allowed, okay? That is a very powerful thing. So if you have a tool like that, please use that, especially if you feel that energy, or premeditate that for yourself. Do a preemptive strike before you even go out into a crowd, before you even go to the supermarket, before you even go to a place where people are gathering. Just protect your energy and ground your energy. I guarantee you will feel better. It's always better to do a preemptive strike and do something preventative rather than have to fix it after the damage is already done. Do you know what I'm saying? I will repost that, Veronica. I'd be happy to. So there's that 4D plasmic overlay. Ground your energy. Ground your energy. Call all your fragments of self, all your different expressions of self that are exploring different timelines, dimensions, space, and reality. Call it all home. Imagine the 12D crystalline diamond light as like a halo or sphere of energy just above your head. And imagine bringing that down in a shower of energy and just washing you clean through. Anything that doesn't belong, anything that you don't agree to from your sovereign God self as far as energy you're experiencing, ask that it be washed through with that powerful 12D crystalline diamond light. Send it down into the earth to transmute it, okay? Essentially send that energy back to source, okay? Bubble of protection, absolutely. Whatever you got, your tips and your tricks and your spiritual toolbox, bust that stuff out and do it early and often, because this is a powerful, highly charged, energetic soup that if we're not in our sovereignty, we're not in our awareness, we're not in discernment, we're making ourselves unwitting pawns. This is not to scare you. This is meant to give you knowledge and information so you can take the right steps to protect yourself. Okay? All right. So the energies of 4D, highly split, separated, bifurcated. That's the nature of 4D though, okay? That's the nature of that dimensional realm. But within that, and the darker energy that I'm talking about, because it very much is dark versus light right now, there is a lot of trickster energy. So what do I mean by that? Trickster energy, impostor energy is very, very prevalent. So remember what I said a couple minutes ago about the fact that we have so much technology now that it really moves faster than our reptilian brains, our ancient brains, and that circuitry has the ability to use it or integrate it fully. And so those who are kind of wielding a darker tapestry in 4D and trickling that down through us, because the only way that it can come to us is through us. So those of us who are making ourselves unwitting, or we don't have awareness, we don't want to have awareness, or we don't believe in any of this stuff, you're kind of perfect fodder for those who would, weave that tapestry even further and make us more subject in the collective hive mind of darker agendas and dividing the human family even more. Some of us do it unconsciously. Some of us do it because we think we're defending the light, but we're actually not. Okay? And some of us are just perpetuating and carrying on the false ascension through things like technology, through Facebook, social media platforms, anything on the internet, okay? All of these technologies are very useful. Why? Because you can reach thousands, even millions of people very, very quickly. That's why technology is such a wonderful tool for dark or light agendas, because it can reach a lot of people at once, right? But this trickster energy, imposter energy, can at first blush look like, sound like, seem like it's representing an agenda of light, but it is actually really dark. And it is actually, it's like a trickster. It's like a joker or a trickster energy, okay? And it just promotes more divide and conquer timelines. It just promotes more division, separation amongst the human family so that we can't get to unity consciousness, basically so we can't get to 5D, okay? We have to work through this stuff in 4D first. You don't just go from 3D to 5D. Everyone has to go through 4D first. That's why if you have no idea what I'm talking about here, well, how do we go through 4D? Then you want to get in the Quantum Quintessence Society, because we're going to spend a lot of time on this in 4D. And how to get your shields up and how to really work through this information, see trickster energy for what it is, not consent to it, move past it, and then move through the different gradients, because every dimensional realm has different gradients or hubs of consciousness within that spectrum or frequency realm that we have to work through. 4D is no different. But I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But the trickster energy, I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. So in my group sometimes, and I get so annoyed with it. I understand it, but I get annoyed with it and I get rid of it because it's innocuous, it's pollution, it is dangerous. But I see a lot of channeled posts in my Global Acceleration of Ascension group. And I read them. I protect my energy before I read them, though. And I read them, and there is an ongoing pervasive theme that is incredibly annoying. and it is fully representative of trickster and imposter energy. So the post will usually start out like, well, first of all, it's usually from the Galactic Federation, or it is from a direct channel. The other one I read the other day, this was the end of last week. I Am Saint Germain was the title of this post, okay? And I was like, okay. And I kept reading. And it started to talk about the channeler and Saint Germain, or the person who was channeling Saint Germain, was talking about the war for Congress, the war for the presidency, the fight for justice by taking back the White House. That's exactly how you know. That's exactly the moment you need to move into discernment and say, hold up. Saint Germain is a benevolent, ascended master who speaks to us and comes to us filtered down through the energy of 4D, because that's their realm. Ascended masters and angels. 4D, that's how they speak to us. That's how the information comes to us here. We trickle down their messages or download their messages. But you're talking about a benevolent energy, a benevolent spectrum of frequency, because Saint Germain is not one person. We think of him as that. But any ascended master, any angel, they represent a spectrum of frequency, okay? A shared spectrum. So a shared spectrum of frequency for Saint Germain would, be, you'd have Kuan Yin in there too. You'd have Ascended Master Jesus or Lord Sananda. You'd have Lady Nada, who's also known as Mary Magdalene, in there, because Mary Magdalene and Jesus, Ascended Master Jesus, are twin flames. This is all the same spectrum or frequency that is representative of Saint Germain, Kuan Yin, etc. Okay? So when you start reading things like the war to take back the White House, or they start talking about black hats, black ops, white hats, black hats, conspiracy theories, things like that, this is bogus. It is bullshit. It is trickster, imposter energy. That person is not channeling Saint Germain, because Saint Germain is a compassionate witness. Therefore, he only represents compassionate witness energy. This benevolent frequency or entity, as we think of him, does not talk about dualization of energies. That's how you know the difference between an entity or being or spectrum of frequency that is legit, straight up being channeled, or someone's ego point of view, and they happen to be using Saint Germain as an example to lure those people in who are like, oh, this is from Saint Germain. It must be authentic. It must be true. It is horseshit every single time. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I want you to be very clear and be in total discernment about what this is, because this leads us into talking about how do we work the steps of working through 4D so we get to 5D. It's knowing the difference between duality and polarity, because they are two different things. 4D, by the nature of the higher frequency energies that come into 4D, the keepers of 4D split those energies between light and dark. So they dualize those energies, or at least that's how we think of it down here when we start using this information to split off or separate from each other in the human family. That's how we know we are dualizing the energy instead of polarizing it. It sounds like the stuff my mom emails me about, right? So when I see that stuff in my group, I'm just going to pull it. And the people who have been habitual line steppers and posted it over and over again after I've asked them not to, they're just gone. It's not even a conversation, just block, delete, you're gone. Because you are polluting the energy of this group with your astral pollution. You're being an ambassador of astral pollution. You're gone. Your energy is not needed here. Thank you. Go in grace with God, and may God rest and keep you, but I don't need to, right? And that is sapping the energy of unwitting people in this group who are here to learn something and maybe don't have that level of discernment yet to know that they have to cherry pick this stuff quite diligently to get to the higher spiritual truth. And that not everything is posted, even though it says, I am Saint Germain, which is one of the biggest triggers, and you should probably look for something like that in the future. That's a pretty good indicator that like there's some bullshit coming. Your bullshit detector should be on high alert. Does that make sense, you guys? Does that make sense? So that's what I'm talking about with this trickster energy. And it's very powerful right now. I'll give you another example. A client of mine reached out to me last week. And she said that she had a very interesting thing happening, that whenever she looked at one of my videos or a picture of me, she was getting like an imprint of my energy that felt very strong, and it felt off. It felt like it was dark. It felt like it was manipulative. And I got back to her right away and I was like, hold up. That is not me. That is not my energy. When I work with clients, I am very, very, you probably get a sense of me about this. I am very, very vigilant in making sure that I send the cords back to my clients, wash clean in God's light. I do the same with my cords. I don't leave any attachments on my energy on a client, and I certainly don't take on any of their energy. I am big into spiritual hygiene. That's my thing. I am OCD as far as that's concerned. So I was like, hold up, that is not me at all. That is trickster energy, very powerful with this highly charged 4D energy, very powerful with the plasmic overlay we're experiencing right now. And any of us who are, steadfast in being defenders of the light, anchorers of the light, way showers of unity consciousness, we are targets. I'm just going to say it. Does this make me fearful? Absolutely not. Because I know who I am in my God self-presence, and I claim that and I declare it all the time. And I do not consent to any energetic parasitic attachments that are of a darker energy. I refuse to come down in frequency, in other words. And I've made that declaration every day, all day for the last 5-6 years of my life. So that is not me. And I let her know that very clearly. And she's like, well, I didn't think it was you, but I just wanted to let you know that was happening. I was like, well, that's something that you need to clear up on your side. You need to make sure that you're not consenting to something unwittingly and that your awareness is fully intact. And this is why it is so important for us to be really present in our lives, to be very aware of the now. And when we're presented with things that are, have the potential to be highly dualizing or highly polarizing, we have to be paying attention. Because how we're going to work through the steps of 4D where we're no longer unwitting pawns is knowing the difference between duality and polarity. When you're in duality, you are looking at a side of an issue and you're holding steadfast to that one side of the issue that you are staunchly in belief of. And you veil your perception to anything else. You refuse to see all sides of the issue. You refuse to be a compassionate witness, in other words, for someone else's vantage point. It doesn't mean you have to believe them. It doesn't mean that you have to, believe what they're saying or get on board what they're saying. All you have to do is hear it, witness it. Do you guys get what I'm saying by witnessing it? That means you have to acknowledge that a different viewpoint exists that may not be your own, and that's okay. That is compassionate witness energy. That is unity consciousness energy. That is 5D, okay? And the more you do that, you're guaranteeing yourself that you're working the steps through those lower hubs of consciousness of 4D where you would be dualized by highly triggering situations and only see one vantage point. And that way you're making yourself an unwitting pawn for the darker agendas, that tapestry that's being woven with more, unawakened or unconscious, unaware beings all the time. Or you decide to go for, think of it as the law of polarity, okay? This is a universal, immutable law. To every energy, there is an equal and opposite energy. That's all you have to really understand. And if you want to know how to work with polarity and be able to easily work the steps through and out of the lower consciousness hubs of 4D and work your way closer to that threshold of 5D, that's what you need to do. You need to know the law of polarity in and out. And you need to start practicing it. Well, I hate to say need to, but I invite you to start practicing that. It's especially powerful when you're presented with a challenge, an issue, a triggering event that feels very black or white, dark or light, good or bad. These are the bad people on this side of this issue. Who says? Why are they bad? Okay, and then we go through our reasons why we think, you know, we're right and they're wrong. All you have to do is start unpacking that stuff. It doesn't mean you're going to come to like a finite solution to it. That hardly ever happens. But it is about being in the compassionate witness energy and seeing the polarity of different issues. Because that's the bright side or the light side of 4D, is understanding polarity and exercising polarity instead of duality. Okay? We're really good at practicing duality here in 3D, and we can see where that's gotten us. You know, we have a lot of triggering events on this planet right now. You're bad if you wear a mask. You're bad if you do wear a mask. Hello. That's just one. You're bad if you get the vaccine. You're bad if you don't get the vaccine. That's another one. Right? You're bad if you believe in COVID. You're bad if you're a Trump supporter. You're bad if you're a Biden supporter. It's, you can't win. You can't win. And you're not going to when you have a mindset for duality. But if you shift your mindset towards polarity and seeing, you know, maybe there's some valid issues on all sides of this. I might not, at the end of the day, agree with that other side, but I can be open to what people believe about that. And I'm not saying this is an easy process, but ascension, folks, is not an easy process. It's not. You know, spiritual awakening, it's not pretty. It's messy. My friend, and I love her so much, and I'm so glad she agreed to do this with me, Becky Gerard-Schoonover and I are going to do episode 9, talking about, is your spiritual awakening rocking your foundation? And that's going to be next week. We're going to be doing a Zoom call, and you guys are all invited. It's free. You know, about the spiritual awakening is not all rainbows and unicorns. It can be sometimes. But the straight dope on that is that it's pretty messy. And if you are really in a process of spiritual awakening, it's going to rock you to the foundation of your being. And the reason that is because the core of who we are and the foundation of our being here in this human physical realm of 3D is based off a lot of lies and deception. And if you really want to wake up to higher spiritual truths, all of that has to crack and crumble. And that is not a pretty process because we've created our personal identity and reality around this, okay? The same is true for how we filter energies from 4D. You know, we filtered a lot of darker information, false agendas, false information, false ascension software through 4D, and we've created a personal identity and reality around it. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily aligned with source or higher spiritual truth. So to get into alignment with higher spiritual truth and source, we have to crumble and dissolve that and opt out of those timelines that we keep, you know, by default, putting ourselves in and saying this is what's real. That's a painful process. It's a dismantling. It is a deconstruction. That's not easy, but it is necessary because the ascension process is 100% participatory, 100%. I mean, you may have a kind of default awakening, a trigger event, and you're like, oh my God, this changed my whole perspective. But to keep that frequency and to stay in alignment with source, the rest of it is on you. You have to be able to be a willing participant to keep riding that wave or spectrum of frequency of energy, to keep elevating and evolving your frequency to be in ever increasing levels of alignment with source. Right? So this stuff that I brought here to you today is meant to be helpful in that. I hope I didn't confuse you. So I'm gonna leave that right there for you guys to kind of sit with today and reflect on, you know, what's happening in your everyday reality where what I'm talking about, you may have living everyday real-time examples of what I'm talking about here. Reflect on that. These are invitations from a source to see, all right, well, how are you responding to these events and triggers then? With duality or polarity? Polarity meaning being a compassionate witness to many sides, not just both sides of the argument. There's usually more than one side of an argument, right? And where you're in duality, like it's just this and that's it. Screw you. This is it. This is the truth. And which one feels better? At the end of the day, what we're talking about is feeling our way into 5D, feeling our way into unity consciousness. You don't intellectualize yourself into higher dimensional realities. You feel your way into it. So when you're in duality, you feel that. Does it feel good? When you're in polarity and being a compassionate witness to many different sides of an argument, how does that feel? Which one feels closer to unity consciousness? I can't stay just dropping in. That's okay, we're done anyway. But I hope this helps you guys so much. And please, please, please come and join us. Becky Gerard Schoonover and I, she is a coach, she is an oracle, she's the creatress of the biomessaging method, which I'm sure she'll talk about. She has got an amazing new masterclass series called Ascension, the series. It's going to be awesome. She's going to be talking about that a little bit, but we're going to be talking about, you know, the unfiltered, straight dope on what it means to go through a spiritual awakening process. You know, why, by its very nature, it's not necessarily something pretty or nice or unicorns or rainbows, but how to work the steps of that so that here you are, you're in the spiritual awakening, you've changed your frequency, you've elevated your frequency. How do you keep that? And then how do you keep evolving through all the next steps of ascension? Because ascension isn't a singular process, folks. It is a stepped process. It is stations of awareness. It is an infinite process, okay? So how do you keep that momentum going, maintain that momentum to keep elevating your stations of awareness through the ascension process once you've had the spiritual awakening? That's what we're going to be talking about. So if you're really having trouble and you find your whole foundation is being rocked right now through your spiritual awakening process, you're going to want to come check this out. It's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific time next Thursday, which is the 4th, which is the day before the Global Acceleration Summit kickoff. It's going to be on a Zoom call because I find that works better than the two of us talking on Facebook because we had a lot of interference last time. So it'll be a Zoom call, but it's free, okay? Becky is a truth teller, absolutely, a staunch truth teller. She is no nonsense, that's why I love her. So thanks so much, you guys. Blessings and love to you all. Mwah. Love and peace.